Hello, and welcome to Heritage Mississauga's Saturday Matinee. My name is Justine Lyn. I'm the Resource Center Assistant here. And before we start, I just want to encourage everyone to like, follow, and subscribe to stay up to date on all the heritage happenings here with Heritage Mississauga. Now, without much ado, let's get into it. I have a really great program for everyone today, and we're going to be chatting about Christmas celebrations from all around the world. And last week we chatted a bit about different traditions that people in Mississauga might celebrate, including Colombia, Mexico, the Netherlands, and many other places and cultures from around the world. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. And today we're going to be chatting about a bit more stuff. So let's get stuck in. Now, the reason we're talking about this is because there's so many new traditions that are coming to Mississauga. I mean, over half of all Mississauga residents were actually born outside Canada, and they represent 200 different languages from over 150 countries, which is pretty remarkable, actually. And so because of this, our multiculturalism has very much changed the fabric of how we celebrate Christmas and our traditions here. Things are evolving, things are merging, changing, intermingling, and that's a really great thing. And so we want to celebrate that. So let's chat about that a bit more. So the first place that we're gonna journey to here is to the Philippines, and they have a very rich Christmas tradition, and so they have this 9-day mass. Well, I should say 9 days of masses called the Simbang Gabi. And so, they're normally late at night or very early in the morning. And the churches are decorated very beautifully, and outside the vendors will be selling, local Christmas goodies, like the bimbingka, which is this baked rice cake, and the puto bumbong, which is this steamed rice cake that uses this glutinous rice that gives it that really nice purple color. So it's really, really beautiful. And so you can imagine this is, kind of an interesting time of year, a fun time. And then as well, and I don't know if anyone knows this, because this was actually one really interesting thing that I was learning, was that, the city of San Fernando in the Philippines is actually known as the Christmas capital of the Philippines, because they have this giant lantern festival known as Ligligan Parul. And it features these parols, or lanterns, that actually symbolize the Star of Bethlehem, right? And so they're traditionally made out of bamboo and Japanese paper that are illuminated with these with candles and oil lamps. This is how they're traditionally made, I should say. In the modern era, they can be made with all different types of things, but that's how they're traditionally made. And this dates back to the Spanish colonial tradition, where people would carry around their lanterns during the Christmas processions, known as Las Posadas. And we learned a bit about that last week in the Mexican tradition, so you can go check that out. And so this is all leading up to the Simbang Gabi masses. And after the procession, the lanterns will often decorate the Filipino homes. So you're bringing this light and this cheer into your home, and it's this really beautiful, tradition. And the Simbang Gabi masses are leading up to the Misa de Gallo Mass, which is on Christmas Day. And so it's the first Mass after the 9 days of the other Masses. And it's said that if you attend all 9 days of the Simbang Gabi, that you may actually get to make perhaps a little Christmas wish. And the masses will include lighting candles, having projector displays, nativity scenes, and nativity reenactments, as we can see here. And to chat a little bit more about this, I want to bring on my my friend Maria Guiao, and she is going to talk to us about Filipino Christmas traditions.
All know Philippines, majority is a Catholic country, And we practice our faith, especially the Christmas tradition. And these are the Simbang Gabi, the Parul making, and the Misa de Gallo. Now, as a Filipino, when I grew up, I have the family Christmas as more on a family tradition that all my uncles, my aunts, the grandparents, grandchildren, children will all be together and we will celebrate it. We go for the evening mass. We call it at the old house. That's our the grandmother's house. And everybody is there. And after the Holy Mass, after the evening Mass, the Misa de Gallo, then we come back home again to the old house and we celebrate. That's where everybody is really celebrating. There is joy. There is, for example, if you don't see each other for a long time or there are misunderstanding, it's more on a family show of strong family ties. It's more on a family tradition that is expressed by everyone. And for us children, we enjoy the celebration of everybody giving us gifts. I come from the province of Pampanga, and Pampanga in the Philippines and even around the world is well known for the Ligligan festival. That's in San Fernando, Pampanga. That is a competition of the brightest, the best, the biggest showdown of the Christmas lantern, or Parol as we know it. For us, Christmas is a celebration of everything, of life, of love, of joy, success, everything, failures, health. It's a celebration. So wherever you go, the Christmas lantern, the Parol, is a symbol of Christmas. San Fernando, Pampanga, that's called the Christmas capital of the Philippines during Christmas because it's really a big time celebration. Imagine all this big as you can imagine. It's really, shall I say, it's uplift the spirit of everybody. Not all, it doesn't matter what your faith is, but you will enjoy the beauty. The reason why they're making it, it shows of thanksgiving and peace and joy and health and happiness. Some Filipino-Canadians, they have it outside their homes. So even it's winter, it's okay. But for us, it's inside the home because we still have the paper made, and it's colorful Japanese paper with bamboo sticks. In elementary, you're trained how to do that in the school. That's why all of us, if you grew up in the Philippines, you know, because that's part of the Christmas tradition that everybody, all classes, will start doing it, particularly in the elementary. The tradition, I keep it that we have the Christmas Day or Christmas Eve all together, and we still have the food. And particular food for me, personally, it's the ube. It's a purple yam that since I was young, I remember it in my own family, we do it. So Christmas time for us is always family. So of course, I miss my family when it's Christmas time. Although we call, but still my own family, my parents are now resting in peace, but the joy and the memories will always be there. Yeah, my parents are with us anymore, same with my husband, but I say Christmas is always a family tradition that we are all together, and forever, of course, they will always be in our hearts, and we try to keep that tradition, as I always say to my children. Every Christmas, when we do this sweet, the ube, the purple yam, I remember as if all my sisters, my brother, my parents, because that's what my mother did to us. You will always remember me when you are doing this. Same with the side of my husband too. Ube, purple yam is a tradition during Christmas time because that crop crop is only on winter time, particularly Christmas time. Yeah. So for me, it's the memories that Christmas is my parents are with us. Christmas is a time for everybody. It doesn't matter if you have, whether you are anywhere in this world, Christmas is a peaceful time to celebrate because it's a new life, a new beginning. And I wish everybody Merry Christmas, the peace and joy in every home and in our hearts. And of course, maligayang Pasko to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Maria and to the Filipino-Canadian Community House for teaching us so much. Thank you. The next place I want to go with everyone is to Jamaica and Bahamas. I'm sure lots of people would love to be there right now, basking in the sun, I'm sure. So there's this interesting celebration called Jonkonnu. And this kind of originated in the 17th century when the plantation work would cease. And you can imagine this would have been a really big thing for, people who didn't often get any time off throughout the year. And the work would cease from Christmas Eve to Boxing Day each year. And the plantation owners would sometimes give their slaves a gift of a piece of cloth and meat and wine. And so you can imagine there's, this is a really special time. And so of course you have to make merry with this time. So there would be all night dances with masquerades and drumming and dancing, and the bands would move from house to house, entertaining people. And there was this mix, this fusion of the African dances as well as the British folk plays, because we have to remember that these are, British colonies at the time. And so they would have these characters that they would do for these plays, which would include things like the king, the queen, the devil, Pichi Pachi, belly woman, cowhead, policeman, horsehead, the wild Apache, the bride, and the house head. So all different types of characters that they would play. And this is traditionally, like in the back in the day, right? And you can see them there with their masks, of course. And this is from 1975, the Jonkonnu celebrations. So one thing I was wondering, and you're probably also wondering this, is why Jonkonnu? Well, that stands for a person, Jonkonnu. And he was an 18th century Akan chief from Ghana, a warrior, a pirate, very influential in the West Indian slave trade. And he was known to have gained control of Fort Bradenbury, and in doing so, outwitting the Dutch and the English, these colonial superpowers. And you can imagine these stories coming to the West Indies and reaching people in Jamaica, Bahamas, it's almost hope. Maybe we can also, in a way, overthrow our like colonizers, basically. And so he gains this hero-like status, basically. And in 1774, Edward Long writes the history of Jamaica, and in so he writes, in the towns during the Christmas holidays, they have several robust fellows dressed up in grotesque habits, followed with a numerous crowd of drunken women who refresh them frequently, whilst he dances at every door, bellowing out, "Jonkonnu." And the interesting thing about this when I was reading it is, like my family originally hails from Jamaica as well. And, and I've never personally heard of this celebration. So it was really interesting kind of, learning more about my culture actually in these things. But also too, it also speaks to that some of these celebrations are, the new generation is not celebrating them as much. However, there are some people that are trying to, in a way, revive the Jonkonnu traditions. And so it is becoming a little bit more popular. However, I will say one thing that we definitely celebrate was the black cake. And this is another Caribbean tradition. And in Jamaica, we call it the rum cake. But really, you can more or less use any alcohol you want. But that in Jamaica, that's what we do. We do it with rum. And it's very similar to the British Christmas pudding. I mean, like I said, just with a wee bit more alcohol, let's just say that. It's this culmination of months of preparation, okay? The fruit is soaked in the booze for months in advance. And so when I'm normally making it, I'm thinking about doing this in the summer or the fall. It's to be made in December, basically. And it's this family affair, you know, that you'll often see the children mixing the batter or cleaning up, and the elders are, you know, watching over them, making sure that they're doing the recipe correctly. And they might be buttering and creaming the butter and the sugar for the mixture. And even after baking, the cake may be glazed or infused with rum and other alcohol. And I should also say that the recipes are passed through generations, right? So I learned from my grandfather, and he learned from his own parents before him. And so it goes down the generations, right? And the cake is often shared with, you know, your family, your friends. One thing I remember growing up is that, you know, we had a lot of friends from Guyana, Trinidad, and we would get their version of the black cake, and then we would give our own version to them. And so, you know, there's this kind of generosity and gift giving that is, in my opinion, what I kind of associate this with. So I did find a video of myself and my grandfather making this, so I'll just show that to you. So this is Leonard Lyn Sr. and myself, Justine Lyn, making the Christmas rum cake. And you can see my grandfather has to watch diligently over what I'm doing.
One way only.
Yeah.
You know. But today I noticed that I just, you know, yeah.
So the eggs in now?
So next, I want to go to a totally different content. So let's go over to China to talk about the Holy Birth Festival. Now, although I will say Christianity is, you know, a minority religion in a lot of parts of China, there are definitely some people who do celebrate Christmas, especially in, you know, places like Hong Kong. And so you'll find homes decorated with, you know, evergreen plants, bright paper chains, and this tree of light, which is kind of the equivalent to our Christmas tree. And the tree is adorned with the red paper chains that symbolize happiness. And, you know, Santa Claus, they're calling him like Shendan Loren, or Old Christmas Man, or Len Kun Kun, nice old man. In Hong Kong, you'll sometimes find people making offerings to different saints. So that's also something that can be done. And interestingly enough, too, apples are a very much beloved Christmas fruit to give to people, because the Mandarin word for apple actually sounds a lot like the word for peace. So, so there's that connection as well. And next we go to Japan, and this is rather interesting. Now, millions of Japanese each and every Christmas will feast on an array of fried chicken from KFC. This is a big thing. And why KFC, you might say? Well, they can thank their first KFC manager in Japan, Takashi Okawara, who began the tradition in 1974. And he marketed KFC as the traditional American Christmas meal. he later admitted, mind you, that this was a white lie to encourage sales. As many of us know, if you were to say the typical American Christmas meal, the first thing, at least to me, that would come up would be turkey or something like that, not KFC. But but you know what? The white lie worked and people liked it. And one story, or legend, I should say, is that Okawara, he went to a Christmas party dressed as Santa Claus, and the children loved him. And so he was inspired to bring, the Christmas tradition to Japan. Another legend says that Okawara overheard some foreigners kind of looking for a Christmas dinner tradition to do in Japan, and finding that there were very few turkeys in Japan, they decided to go with KFC. So whatever you believe, it doesn't much matter. Just that, nowadays Japanese love their KFC, and it's become their own tradition, which is quite nice. And next we go to yet another continent, to Africa and Liberia for Old Man Bakya. And the Bakya, he's this beggar who wanders through the streets around Christmas time. He's depicted as almost a devil type figure with a big belly and raggedy clothes, who goes around the towns and begs for presents. And he'll come to your door and he'll sing this song called "Merry Christmas, We're at Your Door." And there'll be drumming, and it gets louder and louder and louder until the residents finally relent, open their door, and just decide, okay, just give him something. And the beggar will yell to them, "My Christmas on you," meaning give me something nice for Christmas. So that's quite amusing, I find. And next we go back to Europe, to Poland for the Polish Christmas Eve supper known as Wigilia. And it's traditionally served on a white tablecloth. And there's a tradition that some people still do where underneath the tablecloth, they'll actually put some hay. Although I've also seen people put the hay on top of the tablecloth, but regardless, there's hay, and it's supposed to basically signify the baby Jesus in the manger. And there will also be a lit candle in the window and an empty seat at the table. So, you might wonder why this is. Well, it's actually to symbolize a hope that a stranger may come into their lives and share their Wigilia meal with them. And this is because there's an ancient Polish adage which reads, "A guest in the home is God in the home." So you can see this generosity very much present in the Christmas celebrations here in Poland. And the celebration begins when the first star is seen in the sky, and all will break the traditional wafer known as the opłatek and exchange, good wishes for the new year. And you can imagine that this is often quite an emotional time, because you can imagine that a lot of people may not have seen their, their family for perhaps even the whole year, especially, let's just say, if there's Polish Canadians, perhaps, and their family comes from Poland to visit them, and you can imagine that this would be in a very emotional time, because it's almost this excuse to tell them how you feel and to say, good luck and Merry Christmas, and I love you and I miss you, and these types of things. So it's quite a nice tradition, I think. And the wafer, you'll notice, is stamped with religious figures, and it's actually known also as the bread of love. Isn't that sweet? I love that. And absent family members will even sometimes be sent the opłatek by mail, because nobody wants to miss out on this beloved Christmas tradition. Now, after this point, the eating will start. And when I mean eating, I mean there's a lot of it. Okay, there are 12 different dishes typically, although some people may have more, but there's at least 12 to represent the 12 apostles. And the Vigilia is typically a meatless meal, and this originates from the long-time church abstinence mandate on meat during the Christmas season. However, the church has since repealed this, and so some people will, kind of debate back and forth whether or not Vigilia should be meatless or should include meat. However, it is, I should say, traditional that it is meatless. And after that, carols called kolode will be sung and presents will be opened. However, I should also say that traditionally speaking, children would have gotten gifts on St. Nicholas Eve on December 5th. And this is when Mikołaj, the Polish Santa, I guess you could call him, comes and would leave the presents. However, a lot of people are starting to kind of mix the traditions of the West with, the traditions back home. And so a lot of Polish Canadians, sometimes you'll see that they'll have a present under their pillow on December 5th, and then they'll also have presents on the 24th. Now, Christmas Day itself, the 25th, is spent in rest, prayer, and usually people will visit family and friends that day as well. And to speak more about this, I have my friend Robert from the Orlinski Museum to chat about Polish Christmas traditions.
For Vigilia usually starts when you start cooking a lot of dishes. So we have about 12 dishes that we're making, one for each apostle. So there's a lot of things that are being cooked. So we're making something called lasagna, which is pasta and cabbage and mushrooms. And then we have pierogies that are being made, and then just beans and other dishes. We also make red borscht with something called uszka, which are just like dumplings that would kind of look like tortellini. In addition to that, one thing that my family used to do, we don't really do this anymore, is that we go to the Polish Plaza in Mississauga, and then we used to buy like a live carp, I think. So we would take that home, and then my dad would actually put it in the washroom, and it would be swimming around. So I thought that was actually pretty funny. Remember, it's like swimming. So, but then after that, carp would be prepped a day before Vigilia, and then it would be made to eat the next day. So usually the way we make it is we bread it a bit, and then that's usually how we like our food. So we usually like to start Vigilia when the first star is seen up in the sky. And then after that, we get around the table, and then we start with an opening prayer. And then usually the opening prayer is actually the blessing of the wafer, or in Polish we call the opłatek. And then after, everyone takes a piece of the opłatek, and then we go around, and then one person will take a piece of your opłatek, and then the other person will take another one, vice versa. And then for every time someone sends a greetings, you would take a part of their opłatek. So yeah, it would just be, wishing everyone great wishes, good health and everything good with their life, like work and school and etc. Then after that's done, we sit down at the table, and then we start eating. My mom always says on Vigilia, if there's a certain trait you have, so let's say, on Vigilia, you're being lazy, So my mom says that if you're lazy on that day, you're gonna be lazy throughout the whole year. That's what my mom used to say. I don't know if that's just like my mom saying, but that's what she always used to say. And so after we eat Vigilia, we clean up the table and everything like that. And then we sit around the Christmas tree, and then there will be one person giving out gifts. So usually we like to open our gifts on Christmas Eve. That's when we open them. I don't know if that's a tradition everywhere because I know what my parents told me when they were younger, they would get small gifts on St. Nicholas Day, which I believe is December 5th. But that's what I remember as a kid and when I was in Canada. We would open our gifts on Christmas Eve. So on Christmas Day, it's more of a religious holiday. So when we wake up, we do have a just some kind of Christmas breakfast. So mostly just with bread and cottage cheese and other things like that. Like mostly we're going to church in the morning. That's usually what we do. There's a Christmas mass during that time, so that's where we go. And then after we come home from church, we spend time with family, and then we just have a big feast.
Thank you so much to Robert and to the Orlinski Museum. You can check them out there in Clarkson. And the next place we're going to go is Iceland to talk about the Yule lads. Now, the Yule lads are the sons of Gryla, a giantess who lives in the mountains and, get this, boils naughty children alive. Okay, well then. Now, the Yule lads are far more harmless, but they are a bit mischievous, I will say. And they will visit children on the 13 days, nights, I should say, leading up to Christmas. The children, they place their shoes typically at the windowsill in hopes that the Yule lads will leave them candy. However, bad children will be given rotten potatoes, quite smelly. And each lad has a name that describes the trick he likes to play. So we have the sheep Claude, who suckles farmers' ewes, the Gulligok, who steals foam from cow's milk. There's Stubby, he's short, of course, and he likes to steal the food from frying pans. Then there's Spoon Licker, and you can guess what he likes to do. He likes to lick spoons. There's Pot Licker, who licks the unwashed pots. There's the Bowl Licker, who steals bowls of food from under the bed. There's the Door Slammer. He stomps around and slams doors all day. There's a Skyer Gobbler, who eats up all the Icelandic yogurt known as Skyer. The Sausage Swiper, who loves to eat stolen sausages. The Window Keeper, who creeps outside and will be known to steal things right off the windowsills. The Door Sniffer, who eats stolen baked goods. Then there's a Meat Hook, who eats meat left out. And lastly, the Candle Beggar, who steals candles. So all very, it's quite cute, but they are quite mischievous, I will say. And next we go to the Ukraine to talk about a little bit about their Christmas, which they celebrate a bit later than our typical Christmases here. They celebrate normally on January 6th, according to the Julian calendar, if they're Orthodox. And caroling is this really integral part of the celebrations, which will begin the dinner. And the first dish in the dinner is known as Kutya, which is boiled wheat sweetened with honey and sprinkled with little nuts and poppy seeds and things like this, which sounds marvelous. I would love to try that. And families will wish for a good luck and bountiful harvest in the new year. And how they will do this is that they will throw spoons of Kutya up at the ceiling, and they could even count the grains and, to say to themselves, oh, okay, well, this is how many, cows or calves are going to be born in the new year. This is how many eggs or chickens are going to lay, things like this. And so it tells you how lucky your harvest will be in the new year. So they want it to stick, basically. They want as much of the Kutya to stick up on the ceiling as possible. And so if it sticks, then the family knows that they're going to have a good year the coming year. And to show you a little bit about how that looks like, I have a great video from Jude Video, so check them out on YouTube, about throwing the Kutya.
Okay, you explained it?
Well, the more that stick to the ceiling, the
So
better.
just a couple kernels.
Well,
Just
try
take
to
that
do
bowl.
more. At least 6. And the more that stick up there, the
Train the
better the
frog.
year will
Yeah.
be.
Wing it up there.
Okay?
Dude, not bad, huh? Okay. That's why
Okay.
they go out there and do.
Okay,
If you
ready?
make a good mess, that's good because I just don't get Warren's face.
Yeah, do it. Yeah!
It's gonna be a good harvest.
Thank you again so much to Jude Video. Go check them out on YouTube. They have a lot of great videos as well. Now, today we've talked a lot about, you know, the different traditions around Mississauga that you can find around the world, because of course we are so multicultural here, which is great. And so, you know, you can comment down below, what do you celebrate for Christmas? What do you do? What are some interesting traditions that you have? And will you be incorporating any new traditions this year? I myself have been incorporating new things, you know, as I've been getting to know my in-laws and things like this. So, you know, I'm very happy to be incorporating new things and celebrating my own traditions as well. So, you know, what does that look like for you? And another thing that I was kind of thinking, and this is maybe a hypothetical here, but, you know, what do you think Christmas is going to look like in the future? What's it going to look like in 100 years? Things are always changing and merging and melding. So, you know, that's really interesting as well. And of course, thank you so much for watching, and a Merry Christmas to everyone, and happy holidays as well, just in general. And of course, a very happy new year to everyone on behalf of Heritage Mississauga. Thank you so much for watching.